him. You're right. He's probably in the room. He hasn't responded back. So we can go ahead and start.
Courtney, let's officially start at 6:05. Let everybody get it on their YouTube and a couple more people sign on.
Sounds good.
And yeah, there is CMAC right there.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're just allowing people to get into the room, and we'll go ahead and get started in a couple minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Oscar.
They can hear you now. Okay. So. You want to say hello? You want the video to start?
Yeah, I guess.
Hi, Mrs. Curry.
All right, Mrs. Curry, I think we can officially see you, and I think you're on mute. So if you want to mute yourself so you can test your audio. There you go.
You can say something.
Okay. Hello, everybody.
Hello. Okay, Mrs. Curry, we can hear you. So we can officially start the meeting now that Mrs. Curry is online and present. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
We had originally planned on this meeting being the first one back in person, but thanks to the Delta variant, we're back to a virtual meeting for this community meeting. We will try and return to an in-person meeting once we hopefully get out of this, latest spike in infections. And as you know, our hospital beds are officially all taken up. And 2 weeks ago, we started transporting ICU patients to LA because we had no longer any medical personnel to address the record COVID cases in Fresno County and in the city. So that's the reason we're back virtually. Thank you to 30 attendees and the 20 panelists for making time this evening to get an update on all the great work with Transform Fresno and the TCC resources provided by the state, as well as all the local partners who have provided matching funds. With that, I will turn it over to Courtney Espinoza for the meeting.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Can you see my slide? Right. So we'll go ahead and get started.
No, I can't see it.
Okay. How about now? Can you
Can't
see it now?
No, my screen is black.
Barbara, I think it might be an issue on your end because everybody else
Well, I
can
saw
see it.
Galvin's picture and everything before, so I don't know.
It might
what's
be the
going on.
screen share feature.
Barbara, you might want to try to log off and log back on. That should resolve it.
Okay, so thank you all for joining the Transform Fresno Outreach and Oversight Committee quarterly meeting. So I wanted to let you know that we do have simultaneous translation services available in Spanish and Hmong tonight. All participants should join a language channel in order to listen and communicate with participants. So you would do that by first selecting the interpretation globe at the bottom of your screen, then choose your preferred language. We also have live transcript subtitles showing on the bottom of your screen as well. You do have the ability to enlarge the font of the words or turn the feature off completely by clicking the live transcript button on your Zoom controls and then go to the subtitle settings. So now I would like to ask our Spanish interpreter to provide these instructions in Spanish.
Muy buenas noches a todos. Esta junta tiene interpretación simultánea en el lenguaje de español. Para poder ceder a la interpretación, seleccionará el icono de un mundo que aparece abajo de su pantalla, seleccionará el canal español y también los invitamos a poner en modo silencio el audio original para que solamente esté escuchando una voz. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. And if I can have our Hmong interpreter and provide those same instructions.
Nhớ dùng sẽ tỏ số lên số tù là cũng bé mò nó đó lúc thông sĩ thả nó do hai tên này saoต้องกับphong trả lụt thọ nên cả trong đó khó và luôn địa tê nhớ cho họ người chạy hai tên interpretation này nè khó hai tên mong muốn cho nhớ trong họ cũng chạy này thế lý do nó ở trong đó. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So tonight's meeting is being recorded and publicly broadcasted on the CMAC government channel and live stream at the City of Fresno's Facebook page. It will also be posted on the Transform Fresno website at www.transformfresno.com and Transform Fresno's YouTube channel to view after the meeting. Participation in the meeting will be considered consent for this recording. So during the meeting, you will have an opportunity to comment and ask questions about the topics we're discussing tonight. For those of you that are new to Zoom, if you would like to speak, please utilize the raise hand feature on Zoom or press *9 on your telephone. Once it is your turn to speak, you will be called on to unmute yourself, and then you can choose the raise hand button under the participation section or by clicking the reactions and choose the raise hand feature from there as well. So here's the agenda for tonight's meeting. We'll be highlighting 3 Transform Fresno projects, with each of them having a Q&A section at the end of their presentation. We'll then talk about Transform Fresno Outreach and Oversight Committee nominations, and then have time for public general comment at the end. Now I will turn it back over to Councilman Arias. Did you have any further comments you wanted to make?
No, I think we should get to the updates of these projects, and then we'll turn it over to our panel members for any questions that they may have.
Wonderful. Okay, so let me stop share screen. Let's go ahead and open it up to our first presentation. So Oscar Robinson of the West Fresno Advanced Transportation Technology. Oh, I'm sorry. It's the Leadership Development Program by the Youth Leadership Institute. So Cato, you have the floor.
Awesome. Can you hear me? Sweet.
Yes.
Thank you for the head nods. I'm going to share my screen. It's been a sec since I've used Canva to present, so just let me know that everyone can see this. Hopefully. Cool. So quick disclaimer at the top here. As you see at the bottom, our presenters were originally going to be myself, Ms. Olga Moya, who's the other coordinator from EOC, and then Shermo, who's the program manager for YLI. But babies were born and illness happened between the last 18 hours. So it's just me. So if there are questions that get brought up that are best suited for the whole team or folks that kind of deal with a different component, I'll definitely be noting them down and sharing them with the group. But all the updates that we have to provide are definitely a product and a labor of love of all of us. I just happen to be the one well enough to speak today. So yes, thank you so much for sharing your time with us for this update. We are the Youth Leadership Institute, or the Youth Leadership Development Program. We're a community engagement piece of Transform Fresno. Just wanted to shout out our staff members again, not all who are going to present today, but who have been a really integral part of planning these events and things that we're updating you on today. So Joby Jones and Nicole Hutchings, whose time is both shared in kind from EOC, and then Sharmua as well. So shout out to the rest of our team. Hope they're well wherever they're at. For folks who might not be familiar with the Youth Leadership Development Program, we just wanted to give a kind of broad overview here before we share our updates. As a community engagement partner, our contract proposed goal really hits 3 different points. We're coordinating the program and the agency resources around it, and we're preparing young people to engage in the annual summit. Shout out to any of you participants today who participated in our annual summit on youth perspectives. It was a lot of fun. Love being able to have virtual engagement. The how of us meeting these goals really is to recruit and train 48 young people total over the 4 years, roughly working out to a cohort of 12 each year, give or take a few. Some cohorts are going to be a little bigger, our first one being our first year, and virtual a little smaller. But overall, we're still coordinating a program that's focused on personal and leadership skills development, and we're preparing these youth leaders to really be a part of this leadership pipeline in the project area so they can support and engage with the projects and at meetings based on their capacity and their comfort, of course. The curriculum priorities that were designed by young people, for young people during the pandemic, are down here. They range from really fundamental and kind of classic leadership skills to things like wellness, which is so important for longevity in their participation, as well as budget and financial literacy, history of Transform Fresno, and environmental justice. And then when we think about maximizing our time within this contract, we're also really hoping to engage more young people, which is our primary thing we're updating you all on today, which was our summer workshop series. It was our first in-person piece since beginning. We want to really thank and shout out the city for allowing us to have that budget modification to move some funds around so we could get those resources straight to young people and resource for hands-on workshops that were really a great introduction for youth who had not heard of Transform Fresno before. Click. Okay, cool. Pictured here, you see 2 young people as well as EOC's Jose Moreno, who was at all 3 of the 4 workshops, taking photos, taking videos in person. We were hoping to share a video with you today. It's not quite done, but it'll be up on the website, hopefully within a week or so. But I do have some photos to share with you and an overview to give. The themes we explored represented on the left. We had an introduction to permaculture. We had a discussion on the mind-gut connection. We talked about food deserts and the importance of growing your own food, as well as environmental justice basics and the basics of Transform Fresno. Again, when I walked into that room and spoke to all these young people, only 2 hands went up when I asked, how many of you have heard of Transform Fresno? Anything about it? You don't have to be able to explain it to me. You just have you heard of it? And only 2 hands went up out of 16 young people from the project area. And so we didn't want to just talk at them. We didn't want to just lecture them. This wasn't going to be summer school. We wanted these interactive workshops to put that information in their minds and in their bodies. And so not only were we doing our team building, our usual relationship building, but we also went out, walked through the neighborhoods, did some observations, did some scavenger hunts to really get them thinking about the things that they see every day that affect that lived experience they have. We wanted to give them the introduction to permaculture, not just through a slide deck, but through actually going to a project site down at Yeovil, speaking to some gardeners there, talked about seed planting. And again, with that
Excuse me, Cato, can you do me a favor? The interpreters are asking if you can please slow down your speaking a little bit. They're having a real hard time interpreting as fast as you're speaking.
Yeah, sorry about that. I did not open the chat. Okay, I will try to slow down. Sorry about that. But for our interactive workshops, we were trying to hit team building, being able to observe the neighborhood, things around them that they might like to see changed through a scavenger hunt, as well as introducing them to some basics around permaculture and the significant kind of indigenous roots to the way we treat our land, which also kind of bled into our third day where we did a seed planting workshop and was able to work with the Inside Out community garden, talking about kind of the life cycle of a seed and how that reflects our own health and our bodies. And through that, we also got to talk about healthy food preparation, the importance of healthy choices, and how some systems kind of affect our ability to make those choices. And we ended with some trivia just to see, you know, how they were following along. In lieu of a video, I do have some photos to share from the days. We have a lead person from the community garden here, Amber, with our young people around a huge tree. That's Yoshabel, and hiding behind the bag, Oscar, planting, things that were good for summer, a table of youth preparing some salsa, some of which who like had never like cut a mango. That was like a really fun part of that. And while we don't have the actual video, I did take a little behind the scenes clip of one of our youth participants being interviewed, Brianne Bobo. I have it typed to the left, and it's just like 45 seconds.
It is good, I think, for our voices to be heard because, you know, growing up, we just see things that even we want to change, but we feel that we don't have the resources, or we don't have like that kind of power to change things, such as, you know, some trees, because when we were in program, some kids did want to change. We did have questions like what things that we would change. Some people said streets, like potholes or signs. Others said trees, gardens, stores especially. So things like that we can kind of just bring to the table, but we don't know that we can. But with programs like these, it shows you that you really can come, like even though you're younger, like there's spot and there's opportunity for you too.
So don't know how the audio was on that. It was an iPhone outside while Jose had like the nice microphone set up. I really hope that y'all are able to check out the video when it's all completed. That seagull also had like a ton to say, or whatever kind of bird that was. But I did want to highlight Brianne's reflection. We also had Jerome, who was pictured earlier, share out about their experience, about the highlights and what it meant to them, not just to like, you know, have some fun and like to meet some new people, but really like the fact that their voices matter in this, and that the things that they want to see changed are actually being like moved upon in these projects. There was lots of like optimism, and we've talked about that a lot with the group of youth, is how this optimism around these projects is like not just breeding innovation, but also like motivation to get involved. So I wanted to highlight also some recruitment efforts that have been made both before the summer workshop series and throughout, to make sure we're reaching young people and a good diverse group of them to apply for our cohort, to just learn about this program, to maybe hear about Transform Fresno for the first time. So those are listed here, kind of organized by those that were in person, like kind of individual to individual, those that were more of a tabling opportunity within like a community event, and then some virtual stuff at the bottom. But yeah, through the summer heat, we've gone out as staff in different groups or as individuals to over 400 houses, to several apartment complexes in the project area. We've attended community events with COVID guidelines being met, some back to school health and resource fairs, as well as a Grizzlies game. And we've been able to show up to as many virtual, kind of hybrid and in-person back to school nights and like club rushes in the project area and schools that are around that we know some folks like to transfer over to, just so we're trying not to miss too many people. I think our experience here and reaching so many doors, speaking to so many people face to face, is really that halves and halves and halves. You reach out to so many people, maybe about half of them like soak up what you say, about half of that number might show up to like the first thing, or they'll have another engagement, and about half of that number will come back, and half of that and half of that. So we know, again, while we're programming in this pandemic, while schools are back in session, but young people are some of the most vulnerable to the Delta variant right now, that any participation is good participation, and that we're really trying to prioritize quality of their engagement, because we know that that's how we'll like maximize their engagement. And as we gear up for our second year, we're preparing for a kind of hybrid model of both virtual and in-person curriculum delivery. For right now, we are able to meet in person, but we don't know how that may change or how a shutdown of our community center might affect our in-person plans. So we want to be prepared to deliver that virtually, but for right now, we're moving forward in person. We have the plans for the return of guest speakers that we were able to bring in both last year and this summer. Pastor Lee Pointer, Dr. Venice Curry, the Inside Out Community Garden lead, Nia Hodge, and more are in the works. And then collaborations with other TCC projects, hopefully, gearing towards some community-wide events for the fall and the spring. We've been talking to some folks through Thrivence about like a bike giveaway and kind of a bike share possibility, as well as like a pumpkin patch kind of Halloween type event over at Yeovil that the youth are really excited to be a part of. And our first in-person welcome meeting for our year 2 cohort is going to be Thursday, September 16th. So it's coming up. 8 of the 12 spots are filled, and we have a couple more in-person events this weekend and the beginning of next week to really reach out and get some more folks to apply. Yeah, and with that, this is just the front half of a back-to-back flyer that we've been using. Shout out to Miss Olga. I did not get her headshot earlier, but she's the other lead in this project with me. And these are some of the youth that participated during the summer workshop series. And that's it for me.
Awesome. Thank you, Cato, so much for that presentation. Now we can open it up to any questions and answers or questions that anybody has. Just go ahead and raise your hand, raise your virtual hand, or press *9 so we can see. We'll also take questions from our panelists as well and committee members.
All right, I don't see any questions from anyone. So I think, Cato, thank you for your presentation and you're officially off the hook. And I hope everyone else gets better that, is down with COVID and health issues. All right, Courtney, I think we're ready to move on to the next update.
Awesome. Okay, next is our workforce development project, the West Fresno Advanced Transportation Technology and Training Program. And I believe Gwen Morris is going to give that presentation.
All right, good evening, everyone. Hi, it's good to see everybody. I'm with you, Councilman, that because of COVID and how things are picking up, we're definitely in tumultuous times and being aware. So any projects as we move forward, we're blessed to have them on the table with the times like this. So Courtney, I believe, were you going to pull up the PowerPoint for me? Is that or is that mine?
You definitely can.
Definitely can, or you can as well, because you probably do it faster. Is that okay?
Let me see if I can quickly find it.
I'll just do a quick update, you guys, and we also have Jack, the owner of United Trucking, on the line to answer any questions about where we currently are. And as Courtney pulls the diagram up for us, I just want folks to be aware that we are open, that we have about 7 students now who are enrolled in the program, and that we're moving forward. Once we get our community and states together in terms of how we're going to be able to continue with school. We've had so many folks who started school, including some of ours who've gone through the trucking program, who've had to stop as a result of the COVID. But, once we get through all of that, I'm sure because that our trucking, we will meet all guidelines. That's all. So West Fresno Advanced Transportation and Technology, our goal was to train 200 students over the course of the time period for certification for trucking and low energy and emissions trucks. Can we move it up a little bit, please? Oscar Robinson is the executive director for this program, and he allows me to assist him every now and then. So as you can tell, we have 200 participants over the entire year. Participants will complete 160 hours low emission truck driving with placement attached to that. Again, we've had some issues in terms of making sure that we had purchased the truck. If we move up, our truck was just purchased in July. We're just getting the registration and licensing cleared through the process. So the purchase of the truck actually slowed our process a little bit, but I think it kind of coincided with what is happening in community around our health issues. And so with that being the case, we are on target. We are on target. This is a demand occupation, not only in our county and our agribusiness that we deal with, but it's also a demand occupation across the nation. And I think we were kind of front line in making this training available to folks. So I'm pleased with what we've been doing thus far. As you can see, trucks training starts in September. So by the end of September, I'm sure our registration and licensing and everything will be in place. And we'll have 7 participants who've actually started going through the process at that time. Can I move it up a little bit? This again is the timeline that this says 5 participants. We're now at 7. And so we're moving through that. We'll start at once the truck has been registered and licensed. We'll actually do, I think it's scheduled for October. We're going to have an open house where folks will have an opportunity to come in and see the truck. They'll get to meet some of the students who are working with the truck and see how we're moving forward with that. All right, that really is an update of what it is. We're enrolling, we're recruiting, we're sending people through the process with our Workforce Investment Board. Those that are coming through now that we have the truck, when they finish, we will have some placements available for them, and the process continues. Jack, again, with United Trucking, I believe he's one of the participants, and if you have some questions directly related to Jack, what's happening at the school, feel free to ask those and he's available to answer any of those questions. Or if you have any more questions in terms of logistics and where we are, I'll be happy to answer.
Great. Thank you so much, Gwen, for that update. Does anybody have any questions for Gwen or Jack?
Courtney, I do. Could you remind us how many people were scheduled to be trained with the award?
A total of 200.
200. And thus far, I know you just mentioned you just received the truck, but what's your anticipation for training those 200? By when? Do you have a plan?
By the end of the contract year, I believe we'll meet that goal. And keep in mind, it also depends heavily on what our United States and our county is doing with COVID. That's a major piece in how it's impacting not only the recruitments and enrollments that we do across the nation, but it's also what is happening within our school systems. And so we work in conjunction with what's happening nationally.
So when do you anticipate training the first cohort or the first group, and how many of those would that be?
That'll be the total of 7 that we have in the loop right now. And by the end of September, they'll be with the trucking company, provided that all licensing and registration are in place.
Okay, so by September 7th?
I said by the end of September, they should be all enrolled and actually utilizing the truck. And the holdup has definitely been that process. I don't think anyone anticipated how difficult it would be for us to actually purchase a truck and run it through this process. And so that has been a huge holdup along with the COVID. But I don't think any of those issues are minimizing the need for the truck drivers of the low emission trucks that are coming through our state. It does not minimize the need. And so we'll continue to recruit and work that process. So
just to have clarity in my own head, by the end of September, we'll finish the first 7. Would they be completing their training?
No, because the truckers, they will have at least have access to the truck.
So when are they anticipated to complete the training?
I will have Jack, actually, if Jack is online, to give you that specific with that, if he's available to do that.
I'm not familiar with truck training, so I don't know if it's a 6-month program or a 6-week program.
It's a 160 hours program in terms of training and all of that, but I don't want to do the specifics. I know that Jack may be available to do that.
Jack, we have you online. How long would the training program be?
Okay, normally it would take 160 hours, because DMV is very slow, it's taking us roughly 2 to 3 months now.
Okay.
Let me give you a little example. So student signs up with us. We start getting a permit, which will take 2 weeks. Once you get permit, you have to wait another 2 weeks to just get a drive test at DMV. And drive tests could be out a month to 2 months.
Mhm.
And
So-
if you fail, that's another month out. So
Yeah.
right now, I'm hoping the first 7 will be graduated sometime in October.
Got it. So they graduate from your course in October,
Yes, sir.
and then when do they start working?
Honestly, I just talked to another company this evening, and there's so many jobs for trucking. As soon as they get a license, as long as they're willing to work, they have a job.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what I stopped. Okay, I'll go to other panel members. I see the hands raised by, I think the first one was Morgan.
I think the questions that Miguel was asking answered most of my questions. But so basically, out of the 200 openings, there's 7 that's anticipated initially. So we're actively looking for people like over 190 people to become truck drivers. And the big question I was like, how long would it take for someone to start the course and achieve that whatever class? Is it A or is it B or is it A? I guess how long would it take? But that's a loaded question.
So if I understand it, Morgan, and Jack, you can clarify this for me, but the first class will start end of September, and then they go through 160 hours of training, which you're anticipating will take about 3 months. And then they should be ready for a job in January?
No, the first class already started, and my understanding is that they will be graduating sometime in October.
Got it.
And they'll be ready for a job in October, end of October.
End of October. Okay.
Yeah.
And so who's responsible for the ongoing recruitment?
That's West Fresno Advanced Transportation and Technology, and that's the work that Oscar's doing in terms of recruitment. Yes.
And Oscar, how many people do we have in the queue right now, besides these 7 that are enrolled?
I'm not sure that Oscar's online.
Oh,
we have, yeah, that's why I'm doing it, Councilman. But I think we have about 15 or so in the queue. What is really happening again is we're ready and the folks are out there. The truck is ready now and the recruitment can begin. What we're being cautious now is the same reason that we're still Zooming. We have an epidemic going on, and we're having to be doubly careful, and folks that whole process. I'm preaching to the choir. And I also reiterate across this nation, we need truck drivers. And so the recruitment that we're doing is not only for local, but it really is across the nation in terms of the work that's being needed, and particularly on the low emission trucks.
But Gwen, if I may, if I recall the grant, we're supposed to focus on recruiting people from the TCC area for the jobs, not necessarily recruiting people from Visalia or.
Oh, no. I did not speak to recruitment. I was speaking to placements and the need for, yes, no, absolutely not in recruitment. I'm saying that the need for the low emission trucks is across the nation. No, not recruitment. Recruitment is definitely our geographic area.
Got it. All right. Morgan, I think I interrupted you. My apologies. Sometimes I act like I'm in a council meeting. So you have the floor if you have more questions.
I'll finish with one last question. I'm just curious to what like the local average of full-time truck driver brings annually to kind of put into perspective, I guess.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I talked to one company earlier this evening. They're saying if you have some experience right now, you're making, if you go from say West Coast to East Coast, and they're paying you anywhere of 55 cents to 60 cents a mile. So you're looking at a round trip from here to say New York will be $3,000, 10 days. So you're looking at a minimum would be $6,000 to $9,000 a month. That's what they're making.
Okay, thank you.
And if you're working local job starts at a minimum around $20 an hour.
Thank you. With that, we'll go to Ivanka Sanders. You have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Morris. I can't see who's all on the phone, but can you guys speak to any of the community members that are on this call tonight, where they can go to apply? And as far as outreach here in West Fresno, do you guys have flyers up or connections with folks in our unemployment office right here at Elm and Jensen? Going to the places where unemployed people are looking for jobs right now, do you have connections to those so that we can get these 200 positions just filled and in line waiting to go?
The answer is yes, we do have flyers available. Yes, we're going to do a large marketing campaign. I believe it's scheduled for October, but you can go to the Workforce Connection website right now. You can enlist, drop your name with West Fresno Advanced Transportation Technology. If you have some names that you would like, we're available for that.
All right.
And the flyers, and I think mainly some of the pieces as now that everything is solidified, that truck kind of made it available. You guys will be seeing more of the recruitment and more of those marketing efforts that you're referring to.
Ivanka?
That was it. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll go to Miss Kimberly McCoy.
Hi, Ms. Morris. Nice to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Thank you for the presentation. I just have a follow-up question to Ivanka's question. Has there been any placements like on social media, job websites like Indeed, LinkedIn, and things like that to do recruiting? Or City College?
Yes, there has been some made. We're also remember that our partner is Workforce Investment Board. And so there has been some recruitment done through that agency as well. And now that COVID is over and our truck is purchased, you will see more opportunities for that. We were shut down for a minute and we've done a slow outreach because of the truck. We want students now to be able to come through and complete the process. So you'll see it. You'll see us.
Okay. And my other question just slipped my head. So if anyone has any questions, go ahead and I'll chime in when it comes back to me.
All right. If Mrs. Morris, if you can just make it a point to send Courtney all your marketing material so that we can communicate out to the partners and put it out locally. We want to make sure as many people in the area are aware of it. And then while Ms. McCoy thinks of her question, my question is how many people can you train at once? Is there a limit to your cohorts?
I'll have Jack ask that in terms of the truck itself and how many he can train. Jack, if you're still on.
We could probably train between 10 to 15 at a time.
Okay. And at a time, is that like a 30-day window or a 90-day window? What's your time frame?
That would be between 40, let me see, month and a half to 2 months.
Okay. Perfect. That gives us a good idea.
Miguel, this is Sandra. I do not have an option to raise my hand. I'm in the car.
Go ahead.
Okay. I just have both the presentations were very informative, and You have given clarity about the progress of your work and the challenges. I would suggest, and I'm sure, Courtney, you're already doing this, but I just want to say it out loud. I know at some point we're going to be giving updates to the Strategic Growth Council around the dollars, and all of these details are going to be very relevant to the delay of the timeline. So I just want to make sure we are capturing the details that they have right now and prepared to give an update, because I know this will impact the overall grant and the contract. And so these details are going to serve us in explaining the delays of meeting timelines potentially.
Absolutely. I also saw in the chat that someone had asked in terms of languages that were available. Again, I think that's, Jack, if you have a response to the more than one language to train, and I'm actually not sure of that piece.
It's mostly English because DMV tests you in English. The written test in English, plus the drive test, you got to be able to speak English.
Thank you.
My other follow-up question, Ms. Morris, is when the project originally kicked off, how many students did you have sign up before COVID? And has there been any follow-up with them to participate into the program again?
Absolutely. I think before COVID, and I'm speaking before COVID, we had started with about 15 students, and then COVID hit. But keep in mind, not only was COVID the issue, but as we're recruiting, one of the questions that students want to know is, how soon can I finish? The exact question that everybody's asking in terms of how long does it take for the training? Students wanted to know that as well. And so we kind of had a slow start due to the fact we could not get the truck purchased and the licensing and registration done, except for July or August of 2021. And so there were students that were ready to go, and that entire process slowed it. It did. It impacted that along with COVID.
Okay.
So that is really what happened in for recruitment along those lines. We are ecstatic about finally having our truck and being able to recruit to that truck. And I think that is a process that no one really knew was going to take as long as it did. So that was a learning curve.
Yes.
That's all it is. It was a learning curve.
Being married to a truck driver, I do understand the process of purchasing a truck and things like that. Are you guys in talks to purchase another truck? Because trying to train 200 people on one truck would kind of be like challenging.
According to our budget, as long as we're doing well with the one,
okay.
we'll hit our mark. We'll hit. If not, we'll come close enough for, I won't say for government work, but we'll come close enough to the mark. Yeah, we'll hit the mark. It just requires a more strenuous kind of outreach and marketing now. That's all it is.
Absolutely. And then I have a question for Jack. I understand that now truck industry is getting away from having a logbook where you write in, they're doing everything electronic, but sometimes, with technology, things go haywire and you're not able to do it. So are you training the students to be able to keep a log, a drive log as well, a written one, as well as having one electronic?
Right now we're teaching them a written log, not the electronic one. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. And also I know from being married to a truck driver that truck drivers tend to not do pre-trips. Are you expressing the importance of pre-tripping your truck before you head out on the road?
Well, this is how I teach my students, is that it's better to find a problem in the yard so you go home with this problem in the truck than finding a problem on the road somewhere you're stuck in the truck.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the panel members?
Miguel.
Mrs. Margarita, and then I'll go to Barbara Wilson.
So the following what Sandra had said about collecting the details from the different projects and understanding what was reported out on the delay of the number of students, cohorts. And, obviously it sounds like it's understandably at a slow start. Is there a alternative or some form of an action plan to how, because one thing I don't know is how long is this project? And so if we're talking about 200, is there an alternative plan being considered to meet the goal of the number of trainees, for example? I think that's important. I mean, it's not a question to answer at this moment, but rather food for thought of what we're going to need to look for as we need to report out the progress of the different projects.
So Margarita, you bring up a good point, and based on this update, I'm going to have Courtney sit down with this team and scope out, how they're going to get to 200, so that as we talk to SGC and we're briefing them on all the projects, we know which ones are going to need additional attention or support, or which ones are kind of out of our control. But that's why I was trying to hone in on how many people can you train at once, how long does it take you. Because all that's going to matter. And so far, every project that TCCF has funded has been meeting or surpassing the initial goal set by those awards. So I'm hopeful that we can continue doing that.
Right. And we want them to be successful. We want all of them to be successful. So wherever we're able to step in and help with some development of it, I think that's where we should be at.
And I think, and thank you, Margarita. And I think one of the main issues on it is successful now is the recruitment and studying our communities and their ability to actually participate in the programs of this nature.
Yeah.
So, apples and oranges in terms of what the outcomes are. And also, I'm just going to add this piece that one of the beauties of partnering with someone such as United Trucking, who have been there, we did not introduce truck training to them. That's why you have partners like that. And so really keying in on developing those kind of relationships that will allow these kinds of programs to continue, I think is a key component of that. So let's not forget those companies that we're partnering with that have been doing this and have been working with folks like Workforce Connection for a longer period of time than we just started with them. So who your partner is important. And so that's a shout out, Jack, to the work that United Trucking has been doing and has continued to do it as well.
All right. Before we go to Sabrina, I do want to, express this point. My experience with the WIB has been that they're not really that good at serving the hard to serve neighborhoods or the hard to serve residents. So that's why this was one of the awards. We wanted community-based organizations and others to try and close that gap. The WIB is very much focused on meeting their federal numbers. So if you have a bachelor's degree and you're unemployed, you're a good candidate for the WIB. But that's not the kind of folks that we're trying to get up and running. So let's keep that in mind. But with that, I'll go to Sabrina. I think she was.
No, let me, I'm going to respond to that, Miguel, because that's why the partnership is with West Fresno Advanced Transportation and United Trucking.
Agreed.
Now, who the big partners are was established by the process.
Yes.
United Trucking and West Fresno Advanced Transportation. And real numbers in real time.
All right.
So that whatever's reported out will really benefit because it speaks to the truth of the work that is being done.
Understood. With that, we'll go to Mrs. Kelly.
Thank you. I think some of my questions have been answered because my hand has been up for a minute, but I was wanting to know, what are your training goals quarterly? Because that 200 number reach with one truck is a pretty steep goal. My brother is a professional truck driver too, and I know he trains new truck drivers. And I'm just thinking one truck to service 200 drivers is just seems to be, I don't know how you all are going to make that happen. Doing any simulation, so help me understand the training process. What is the curriculum and the process?
I'm going to do both. I'm going to say some things and then I'm going to let Jack say some things. You guys, let's be real about how we report and what we're saying. The real is we have to train students to drive trucks. over the last year and a half, there has been some uncontrollable circumstances within community all across our industries. And so the 200 number is that goal. Can we reach that goal? I believe we can with a good recruitment process. And what I just heard folks say at this table is that, hey, what does it look like if we increase the recruitment and we help with that to make it happen? Now, Jack, in terms of their ability to train, Jack, with what do we have, 3 years left, 2.5 years left in the project? What do you
Yes.
say?
My understanding was that we was trained between 50 and 60 students a year, which is not a problem at all.
That's right.
Okay, so 60 students a year with one truck, and then what is the training schedule? How many weeks before each? I don't know if you have cohorts, but how many weeks per cohort? Or
So we don't, let me speak to that. We don't have cohorts. When the students enter, they start that process. And so whomsoever comes, they're eligible to work. They're eligible to go through the training.
well, I understand that, Gwen. I'm just
Okay.
trying to get an understanding of the training process and timeline to make sure that we're hitting that 200 completion goal in the next 3 years. So if you're having 66 students per year and it's an open enrollment training process, I'm just not understanding, like, do you say open enrollment between September 8th and September 13th, and this group goes training? Because then if you just have an open enrollment and people are training as they come in, are they training individually, one by one? I'm just trying to get my arms around your training process and the timeline.
So they're also, go ahead, Jack.
Okay, so when the student signs up, first we get them written test pass, which is permit. Once they have a permit, then we start teaching them inspection of the truck. And while they're teaching inspection, if we feel that they progress to the next step, which is skills, we will take them to skill area, which is backing, offset, alley dog, parallel park. Once we feel that they can handle the truck better, then we'll start taking drives. So when it comes drives, we take one student per instructor on the road. So normally it would take a month to 2 months for a person to graduate from a school. And we do have other trucks in the yard that we be using for inspection and skills. We will not be using only natural gas. Natural gas truck will be used for the drive tests mostly.
Okay, so you have other trucks on the yard there that you're using for the skill test, for the test that they do to evaluate, if how do you check your truck before you get on the road?
Yes.
And then you have some tests that you follow for the written exam so that you get the written exam ready.
Yes.
And you're saying that takes roughly 30 to 60 days.
Right now we have 2 of our own trucks that you take on the road, plus the natural gas one, that's 3. And then we have 3 trucks in the yard that we use.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it would be helpful, and we did this with like the Yeovil Community Garden and other places, maybe if we have a site visit so we can see how things go, or like what they did is they filmed it and they put it on YouTube, which was a great thing for us to see because we were able to see the functionality of the garden and how how they're working out their deliverables. So maybe we won't have so many what seems to be like detailed questions for you all. We can kind of get the look and the feel of the process. I think that might be good, and maybe for your next presentation, give an overview of the actual curriculum and timeline so there won't be so much ambiguity to what the training process looks like. That would be helpful for me. That's all.
Thank you, Sabrina. We do have an open house planned around the truck in October. So that'll answer some of the questions as well. We needed to get the truck in order to have the open house so that folks could actually see the truck and see the whole piece. So that is in the planning. Thank you for that.
And Mrs. Morris, maybe in the marketing material, you guys can describe the time commitment and what people should expect from the training.
Absolutely.
Right. Mrs. Kelly, if you're done, then we will go to Mrs. Wilson.
Hi, Miss Kelly. I just have a question regarding the safety and health issue. You're teaching them to how to drive a truck and how to be safe on the highway. Do you also have implemented in your training plan for them to take care of themselves while they're driving on the highway, like not taking no-dos or what I'm saying, don't drink, all of these things that could cause an accident or, and things like that. I just wanted to know if is that a part of this 6-week program too? Or is it all about just learning how to drive a truck?
Okay. When you're trying to get a Class A license with your truck driving, you are drug tested. And when you work for the company, you will be drug tested, plus put in a random drug testing program. What that means, anytime your name could be pulled out, you will be drug tested. So DOT is very strict on drug testing. So I think when the student signs up, we tell them, whatever you do in the past, that's different. But if you want to get Class A license, you have to quit this stuff.
But are you teaching them also not to use no-dos? If you get sleepy, pull over on the side of the road. Those type of things. Not just that you're going to be drug tested.
But
they need to eat properly.
But that's part of the drug too, isn't it? If you're taking sleeping pills.
Yes, but I'm just saying,
or self-care, instruction on self-care and self-care for longevity.
Are you teaching that?
I mean, if that's not, let me mute, sorry.
I understand what you're asking, Barbara, because I think we do see a lot of youngsters on the road that you're like, how the heck did that youngster get a driver's license behind all that weight?
Right.
And I do believe you're speaking to the old school was no dose. Today it's the Monster energy drinks. And and so I do agree that it's not just about what the standard is by Department of Transportation. We want to see these young Black and Brown community members coming who are having such a great opportunity to truly be successful at this and be able to say, these youngsters are making this kind of money every year, and they did it in a very supportive and a successful way. So, Jack, if there is any way possible within your curriculum to really hone in on the youngsters that are coming in to taking advantage of this opportunity, to really let them know, don't blow it, more than just what the California DOT is saying, because this is an opportunity that when you look at the whole wraparound of what TCC is for this community, there needs to be more training than just what's on the black and white line of what the DMV is stating. And I think that's really what Barbara is trying to speak to. If there's anything else in the curriculum that can be done verbally on those one-on-one instructions, more in the sense of mentoring and what that really means to not screw up this really good opportunity. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Ivanka.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the panel? All right. Well, thank you all for the time, and thank you, Ms. Morris, and everyone and your team for the update. We can now move on to the next presenter.
All right, so let's move on to the Voice Gladiator training program. So Eric and Vice Chancellor County, you have the floor.
Thank you, Courtney. I'm joined by my colleague, Eric Kroll, who is the program manager representing State Center Community College District. This grant project is a partnership between the Community College District and the Voice Gladiator community-based organization, as well as other partners working with the Voice organization to deliver the training, which we will allude to in our slide presentation. Next slide. Okay, thanks, Eric. So The VOICE acronym stands for Voice of Including Communities Equitably. I don't believe we have any VOICE representatives in this meeting to talk specifically about the organization, but they did provide this detailed content for the slide presentation, which we will be presenting this coming Saturday at our first orientation to introduce the start of the program next week. Again, this is a workforce training grant project designed to help folks who have a hard time breaking into the workforce, get occupational skills specifically in the welding area, get them trained, credentialed, and presented to employers for living wage employment. In advance, Eric. This slide represents a few of the partners we're working with to deliver on the expectations of the grant program. Again, our focus is residents in and around the West Fresno community. Our project goals are approximately 108 completers over the 3-year term of the grant program. Our training program is currently structured at about 25 weeks with a capacity of 18 to 20. Following COVID safety protocols, the training facility is an open air, semi-indoor, outdoor facility to allow for proper ventilation. And we expect to operate 2 cohorts a year. And as the years go on, we can possibly accelerate that by shortening the training time if we recruit for individuals who have a background in welding and or demonstrate, demonstrate the aptitude for welding to accelerate their experience through the training program. Can you get me back to the slide? Next slide, please. This welding program is broken down into a couple of specific modules. The welding instruction, obviously, is the most significant time-consuming module. We have a rotating cadre of 3 subject matter expert welding instructors. I believe 1 or more is bilingual and bring a lot of experience working hands-on with people who have an aptitude for applied learning. We also know that folks who are interested in these kinds of accelerated adult learning format, cohort-based workforce training programs also need additional services to help them successfully matriculate through these programs. So we've partnered with the West Fresno Family Resource Center to help with our case management. They're responsible for our initial screening and onboarding and intake process, which involves substance screening and background checks, as well as COVID vaccination and an aptitude test to determine their likely success in this occupational training program. Another component is our work-life skills. We're working with Dr. Marshall, a community member trained in that area, who also administers a cognitive test to assist the participants with the employability skills they're going to need to be successful once they're placed on a job site. Additionally, there is a mentoring component, which partners our participants with adult professional mentors in the community to help guide them and give them advice, counsel, guidance through their program experience. Next slide. Talked a little bit about our West Fresno Family Resource Center partner. This slide represents their contribution to the program. They're a well-known commodity in the community, and we're really happy to have them working with us. Next slide. Summary of the work and life skills component is listed on this slide. Again, understanding that placement is just the first step. We want to make sure that the program completers are successful on the job. And intervention with life skills instruction is designed to really give them the tools to help them navigate complex interpersonal relationships with colleagues and supervisors, as well as a broader understanding of their responsibilities to be productive wage earner for their families and their communities. Next slide. The matching and mentoring is another critical component. We hope that will assist the participants with being successful as they navigate juggling their responsibilities at home with trying to learn a new occupation and then present themselves to an employer for employment. They're going to need as much advice and guidance as they can get. And so we are pleased to be partnered with organization to help us match mentors with participants, hopefully help them successfully navigate those challenges. Next slide. As far as instruction, most of it is hands-on, but not all of it. So we are using the technology of our learning management system, community college district, to organize the curriculum, the learning objectives being specifically laid out for the participants so they know exactly what is expected of them as they move through the 25-week training program. And again, if they start with a background in welding, it may not take them 25 weeks. If they start with no background at all, our instructors are ensuring us that they can get them employable in 25 weeks. Next slide. We want to make sure that we're presenting all of the possible options to those prospective participants and our completers so they know that at the end of this experience, there is a job earning a living wage that's potentially for them. Part of our role in leading this project is going to be to organize a consortium of employers interested in the work that we're doing to train in this occupation and be willing to both engage with the work as the program progresses and interview and place our program completers. This slide depicts a variety of occupations. This slide depicts, yeah, you can advance.
Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. We're ready to move. Next slide. The occupations and the prospects for success, something for the program completers to look forward to provide the motivation and incentive to keep them engaged in the training. Next slide. Labor market data shows us that the hourly wages and the percent of available jobs in the region. Next slide. And the specifics of the course management system within the community college district's learning management system, the Canvas application, the class details, the class location, and the first cohort duration, start date Monday, September 13th, orientation Saturday, September 11th. I believe that concludes our presentation. If you have any questions, Eric and I are happy to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Conte. Do we have any questions from the panel members? We'll start off with Mrs. Kelly. You have the floor.
Thank you. No questions. Just wanted to say thank you for the really thorough presentation. So you all are starting this month, is that correct? Did I see the start date correctly? And what's the size of the cohort this month?
Say again, I didn't hear.
What is the size of your cohort for this
Okay.
month?
Okay, right now we're looking at 15.
Mhm.
The class can hold about 19 students. So right now we're at about 15.
Okay. And do the students get a stipend as they go through the process to help with like transportation or the cost of participating?
Go ahead. Vice Chancellor.
The grant project prevented us from budgeting for any remuneration to the program participants. So while we don't have any direct assistance to the program participants, I think we outlined where we've aligned partnership to provide some other wraparound services and support.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll also acknowledge, listening to the other presentations, how difficult it's been to get started in this pandemic environment. And I appreciate the patience that the SGC and the city of Fresno, Councilman Arias, has shown as we've navigated the challenges of both trying to organize in this environment with restricted budgets and not being able to meet physically, and the difficulties in recruiting prospective participants. So hats off to the rest of the community organizers and projects for getting it done in such a difficult circumstance.
Will you all be offering classes virtually and in person as a pivot to the impact of COVID?
So here's how our classes work. We have Tooling U is our online curriculum. As far as the virtual portion of the actual hands-on welding, I don't quite think we're able to have that done. Just, a lot of what they're going to be doing is going to be outdoors. They'll be socially distanced. And so we want to have that same, we're reproducing that same environment in the classroom. That's why we kept our numbers between 15 and 19 to make sure that we had space. And we really would like the students to have hands-on training. I do understand the possible need for virtual, but I don't think anything supplants being able to have hands-on, because that's what they're going to need to do out in the field. We've been looking into it. It is outside of the grant funding process, but it is something that we're looking at.
Yeah, I see your point about it would be difficult for this training module to be virtual, being that the work is hands-on and the training needs to mirror what the work is.
Yeah, we have the numbers, we would like to hit 19 every time, but the goal is not to crowd the classroom. The goal is so that the kids have enough room to do the work that they need to do. We've allocated for PPE and those types of things. So we're rather confident that they'll be safe in the environment. There's no 100% guarantee, but we're relatively confident that they'll be safe in the environment that we put them in. And when they finish the program, the instructors that we have, I really like the direction and their teaching methods. I think we're going to put out high quality students. So again, the virtual machine is something that we're looking at, but I think for best practices, it's good to make sure that the kids have hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
I'll speak to that just from a practical standpoint. Eric is right. It's a contingency that we had to consider under the circumstances, but it's prohibitively expensive. And the instructors are much more skilled and adept at teaching the traditional way, and employers are looking for welders who are trained up in the traditional format. But if we had to do something, we have a backup, and we hope we don't have to use it.
Great. Thank you both.
And any other questions from the panel? All right, seeing none. I do have a couple of questions. Did I hear you correctly? You start on Saturday or this weekend?
We have an orientation scheduled Saturday. The orientation is not an open house. It's only an orientation for those prospective participants that have completed the onboarding process, which includes screening and assessments.
Is that in person or online?
That is in person.
Oh, perfect. Can you send me the details? I'd like to stop by if I have some time this weekend. I want to see the observation and the orientation.
Sure. Eric, can you make sure the councilman gets?
I will do that.
And we can share it with the rest of the panel members too, and Courtney. Or you can send it to Courtney and she can share it with us in case anyone has time to stop by and observe it. It's one of those programs that we've all been waiting for a while to kick off. So we're looking forward to it. And that's the only comment I had and question. So again, thank you for making it work. And Mrs. Kelly's right. You know, welding is not something you can learn virtually, and it's a high demand craft. As we're doing construction projects in the city and having to spend approximately $250 million, most of which is going to go to constructing and rebuilding the city, we're going to need these folks to be trained so they can pick up some of that work. So that's all the questions and comments I have. Any other comments from the panel members or questions? No, saying none. Thank you, Mr. Conte and Eric, for your time and your presentation. All right, Courtney, I think that was our final presentation, right?
Yes, but I do have some more things that I want to talk about.
You have the floor.
All right, so before we get into our next agenda item, I did want to update everybody on where we're at with the Here to Stay report. And it's a policy-based blueprint for displacement avoidance in Fresno. So since releasing the report and opening up the public comment period in early June, we have posted the draft report on the Transform Fresno website as a pop-up. So when you visit www.transformfresno.com, the report is downloadable in English, Spanish, and Hmong. So once you've read the report, there are several different ways to make a public comment on the report. You can fill out the survey right then and there on the website where you found the report. You can email your comments and recommendations to transformfresno@fresno.gov, or you can send a written correspondence to the City of Fresno at my attention, 2600 Fresno Street. So hard copies of the report in all 3 languages and comment cards have been available at the locations listed on this slide. So feel free to take a quick snapshot of that QR code and it'll take you directly to the website. In the months of July and
Courtney,
August.
can I interrupt you really quick?
Yeah.
Just on that report itself, a few weeks ago, maybe it's been a month or two now, the Fresno Real Estate Association and Granville had sent out massive email communications alleging that the council was going to institute rent control as a result of this report and connected to this report. So just to make you guys fully aware, there was a lot of misinformation out there around that this report would result in rent control being voted on immediately by the council. So the misinformation is still out there. Just be aware of it. We did have a conversation with the Real Estate Association in Granville about putting that kind of level of misinformation out there. And the council was inundated with blast emails from people opposing rent control. As you could imagine, the majority of our city are renters, which also means that the majority of our city are landlords. So landlords are very quick to communicate with us when they think that we're going to engage in rent control. We will be having a summit on housing, most likely in November with the state legislature, and looking at some policies locally and statewide that can provide relief for generating more housing while addressing some of the affordable housing components that this Fresno and the rest of the cities in the state have to, address given the record rent increases in the city of Fresno. Thank you, Courtney.
Great, thanks for that information. Appreciate that. So in the months of January and August, we held 4 community study sessions to learn more about the 46 proposed policies and talk about priorities that the community would like to see. Flyers were mailed out to 93706 and emails were also sent out to the Transform Fresno listserv, the Fresno Housing Element listserv, and other community stakeholders. These sessions contained an introduction of each policy, breakout rooms for small group discussions, and report backs to spark additional conversation. City staff within the planning department spent a lot of time putting these sessions together. And I want to personally thank Sophia Pagalatis and her staff for their time. We had a total of 397 people that registered across the 4 sessions for the study sessions, with 189 people actually attending. These sessions were live streamed and recorded for future viewing and are all available on the Transform Fresno website. The Thrivance Group, creators of the report and policy recommendations, through their street teams, have also provided on-the-ground engagement within the community, allowing additional opportunities to comment and provide input on the recommended policies. In all, the public comment period has been approximately 90 days and will conclude on Friday, September 10th. So if you have not had the opportunity to read the report or provide your comments, please visit the website or one of the locations on the previous slide so you can do so. I also wanted to let you know there will be 2 anti-displacement task force meetings that we would like to invite you to. Both of these meetings will be virtual, and we will be sending out notices with links in the next couple of weeks. The first meeting is going to be on October 7th. It'll be an evening meeting from 5:30 to 7:30. Dr. Thomas from the Thrivance Group and Sophia Pagalatis from our planning department will be summing up the public comments and the outreach that was provided during the public comment period. Then the second meeting will be on October 21st from 5:30 to 7:30 again. And the Anti-Displacement Task Force will have a community discussion about the policy recommendations and priorities that they will be recommending to the Planning Commission and ultimately to the Fresno City Council. So I encourage you to attend both of those meetings to get some more information and provide your input. So, on to the next thing is the Outreach and Oversight Committee. So the Transform Fresno Outreach and Oversight Committee contains 16 members from the Southwest Chinatown and downtown communities with Councilman Arias as the chair. We currently have 3 vacancies on the committee, 1 representing Chinatown and 2 representing downtown. In order to be a member on the committee, you must have been a voting member of the Community Steering Committee that was originally formed in 2018 to vote on the suite of projects that were ultimately submitted to SGC and funded through the Transformative Climate Communities grant. So on your slide, you will see the current list of committee members and some of their faces and names on the screen. If you were a voting member on that previous committee and would like to serve on this board, or you have additional questions about the position, please email transformfresno@fresno.gov for a nomination form. Once we receive the nominations, we will hold interviews to appoint the newest community members. And we'll go ahead and also post the nomination forms on the Transform Fresno website as well. So that was all that I had. We can open it up to public comment or comments on what I discussed. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Any questions from the panel members? I don't see any. Any questions from the attendees? All right, Mrs. Espinoza, I think this concludes our meeting. Thank you all for your time. Oh, Mrs. Curry, I see your hand up. We will hand you the floor.
I'd just like to comment that it's been very informative. And while I didn't ask any questions, I think a lot of my questions were answered from the participants. Thank you very much.
All right. And with that note, we will conclude our meeting. So thank you all for coming. And we'll see you at the next quarterly meeting. Hopefully the Delta variant and COVID will be more graceful to us and allow us to meet in person.
Thank you,
Stay
everybody.
safe and please get vaccinated if you're not.